Camera's eye for the longest stretch since his COVID diagnosis, but busy on Twitter and reportedly eager to get back to work in the Oval Office, despite concerns about how contagious he might still be. Top advisors contradicting each other over whether the president did appear in the Oval yesterday.
The president actually showed up in the Oval Office yesterday.
His chief of staff insisting he did not.
He wanted to go to the Oval yesterday.
Signs of a White House scrambling to stay on message amid its own growing outbreak and show President Trump is firmly in command.
The president continues to work. He's in very good health.
The White House physician saying today the president's vital signs are stable and quoting him as saying, "I feel great." At the same time, confusion on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue about another coronavirus stimulus package after President Trump abruptly tweeted he was stopping negotiations with Democrats on Capitol Hill until after the election. That sent markets into a tailspin until the president tweeted again that he would support a standalone bill for stimulus checks to struggling Americans. Democrats have long opposed a piecemeal approach to economic recovery.
All he has ever wanted in the negotiation was to send out a check with his name printed on it.
And as the vice presidential candidates prepare to debate tonight in Salt Lake City, a high-stakes debate inside and out of the White House over whether President Trump will be healthy enough to face off against Joe Biden again next week in Miami. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Oklahoma Task Force 1 is headed to Louisiana. The group left this morning around 10. They will first stop in Monroe to help build shelters for evacuees. From there, they'll head on to Baton Rouge until after the storm passes.
One thing about our USAR team is that they're very dynamic, they're very self-sustaining, so they can adjust to whatever mission they're given.
Now, once the storm passes, the task force will be given their operational assignment. They'll be deployed as a Type 3 team with swift water and collapse capabilities.
Hurricane Delta left Mexico relatively unscathed, entering the Gulf with the U.S. coast in its sights. That storm made landfall early today, just south of Cancun. Cancun evacuated thousands of tourists and residents yesterday. Officials in Mexico say that there are no reports of any deaths or injuries. Forecasters say Delta could make landfall in Louisiana, possibly as a Category 3 storm sometime on Friday.
Now, your Two Works for You First forecast, sponsored by Executive Homes.
We've had so many named storms this year that we're going into the Greek alphabet, and that's why we are in the Delta as the name for this hurricane. It is a very large hurricane as well. I want to show you the current image of Delta as it continues to move towards the central portion of the Gulf. If you're wondering just how big that is, well, let's put the state of Oklahoma over it, and you'll see that Oklahoma pretty much takes over the whole hurricane. So it is the size of the state of Oklahoma, even larger than that. This storm's going to continue to track to the north, where we do have hurricane watches in effect across portions of Louisiana and northeastern Texas. So this is going to take a curvature to the northeast and make landfall by late Friday. So that's something we're going to be watching very closely. We are tracking a strong cold front that will arrive in the extended. More on that with your 10-day forecast in about 12 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mike. Well, someone spray painted a smaller BLM sign on Greenwood Avenue earlier today, and this afternoon a crew from the city of Tulsa removed it. This coming after the removal of the controversial Black Lives Matter mural in the Greenwood district. That mural sparked a debate between the city and the community. The larger mural was removed early Monday morning.
Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been released from jail. He's awaiting trial for murder in the death of George Floyd. The 44-year-old faces 12 years in prison if convicted, and now all 4 officers involved in Floyd's death are released from custody. Chauvin faces second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter charges.
How will you vote in this election? Now, we're not asking what candidate you're going to vote for, but will you vote by mail or in person? Our Joe St. George looks at what you need to do to make sure that your vote counts. It's part of our Vote 2020 initiative.
Election day is getting closer, and every day Americans are deciding who they'll vote for, the manner in which they'll vote. Perhaps you are like Terrell in Detroit and plan on turning in your ballot as soon as possible.
You don't have to stand in line. Just come up and drop your ballot in the box, and you're on your way.
Or maybe you were like Ron, who we met blowing leaves outside his home recently. He's committed to voting in person on Election Day.
I'm going to go vote in person. I got the ballot, but I just don't know with the mail. I want to make sure my vote's going to count.
However you vote, the facts suggest if you vote by mail, you have to be more careful than voting in person. In 2016, 1% of mail-in ballots were rejected nationwide. Meanwhile, around 0.33% of in-person ballots were rejected. That's according to Dr. Daniel Smith at the University of Florida. What does that mean if you're voting by mail for the first time this year? Well, it means you've got to pay extra attention. Oftentimes, ballots are discarded simply because there's no signature. But remember, every day more Americans are voting. According to the Elections Project, as of this morning, at least 5.1 million Americans have already cast their ballot. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Now remember, the deadline to register for the November 3rd election is this coming Friday. It's October the 9th. You can find the link to register on our website. And we have a lot of other resources there for you, too, from other important deadlines, where to vote, even sample ballots. It's all online now at KGRH.com.
All right, in just hours, for the only time in this campaign, the candidates for vice president will face off in a debate. The event framed and affected by the COVID-19 outbreak at the White House. Jay Gray is there tonight just outside of the debate hall on the University of Utah campus with a closer look for us.
The stage is set, including these plexiglass shields, which had been an early point of contention between the campaigns. Mike Pence and Kamala Harris will be seated just over 12 feet apart instead of the 7 as initially planned. Another coronavirus protection put in place as the candidates sit down face to face for the first and only time during the campaign. Analysts say for Vice President Pence, the goal is
present the Republican agenda without Donald Trump's personality. So he's going to prosecute that case, try and present the Democrats as being too far left for the middle of the country.
While also pointing out the administration's work over the last 4 years, something Harris, a former prosecutor, is expected to focus on as well.
I'm looking for, rather than Senator Harris fact-checking him every 30 seconds, but holding his feet to the fire for what he is responsible for and what his boss is responsible for.
Here's the format for the evening. There will be no opening or closing statements. Topics will be separated into 9 10-minute discussions, with Vice President Pence getting the first question. A big question for those tuning in.
Everybody in your administration
is will this showdown dissolve into the shout fest of the first presidential debate?
Hopefully, I'm sure it'll be more civil.
Civil and safe. It's what most are hoping to see here tonight. Okay, to set the scene inside, there'll be about 200, 250 people. Those in the audience will be social distanced. Everyone has to have a COVID test, and they have to wear these masks provided by the university. Anyone who refuses, officials say, will be escorted from the building. Jay Gray, NBC News, Salt Lake City.
We've also set up a hotline for you to get all of your questions answered. You can call the number on your screen to reach our Decision 2020 Problem Solvers hotline. You can also send an email to problemsolvers@kgrh.com.
Coming up, the massive impact Hispanic-owned businesses have on Oklahoma's economy as we continue to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month.
And if the pandemic has completely tired you of cooking in the kitchen, we have an expert who's going to share ways to eat healthy at fast food restaurants.
As we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, we take a closer look at the impact of this community. There are more than 10,000 Hispanic-owned businesses in Oklahoma, generating nearly $8 billion in economic activity. I explored the growing influence of Latino business here in Tulsa.
I want to live there. I want my American dream.
Hugo Gutierrez was in high school in Colombia, South America, when he decided ORU was the university for him. He worked his way through college teaching salsa dance.
I didn't think anything of it, but what started in the living room of my house with 15 people, a year into it, we had 500 people coming once a month.
His Salsa Nation soon launched a second new business when someone asked him to be the DJ at their wedding.
But I tried it, fell in love with it, then realized, okay, I can actually make a living doing this.
It's clear Hispanic-owned businesses are booming. The U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce reports during a recent 6-year period, Hispanic businesses grew 40%, twice the rate of other U.S. businesses.
If you go to our website is in Spanish.
As the director of Hispanic banking for Regent Bank, James Sanchez says his employer created an entire division to serve Hispanic business. When the pandemic hit, they worked 24/7, handling over 2,000 emergency PPP loans.
At the bank, remotely, just to make sure, because we understood how vital this was to actually ensure that people could actually survive and that their families could survive and their employees could survive.
Hispanic Americans aren't just growing their businesses. He says they're moving up the corporate ladder too.
But seeing individuals that are that are part of executive teams, that are part of the people that sit at the table to, whether it's move a corporation or whether it's move any education.
As for Hugo, his DJ venture boomed.
It turned out to be a full-on wedding DJ business where we, in a normal year, do about 400 events.
His advice? Find your passion in life to succeed in business.
You have to love it, I think, in order to be successful.
And Hugo's success just keeps growing. In addition to his DJ business, Lions Road Studios, he recently bought the Silo Event Center in West Tulsa, yet another adventure in business. For more on our celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, just go to our website, kjrh.com.
Macy's is asking customers to share the warmth this winter season. The store is holding its 8th annual Buy a Coat and will donate one campaign. So starting today, for every eligible coat that is bought online, Macy's will donate a new coat for clothes for souls. To get involved in the campaign, you'll need to buy the coat online at Macys.com. This campaign runs from now until Sunday, the 11th.
Now, your 2 Works For You weather, sponsored by Executive Homes.
All right, Hurricane Delta continues to churn in the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the winds are down to 85 miles per hour because it made landfall, and of course, land detracted from its energy.